don't wanna be just someone that's new. I speak my mind so free, so you could hear the truth. Yeah, I know that we all have fear.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Truth for Youth podcast. Well, today our podcast is going to be a little different. It's going to have a different tone, a different vibe to it. Just a lot been going on in our country, and honestly, I'm not even 100% sure where to start. If you are listening to this and it's not current day, this is a recording that you're listening to maybe a year, 2 years later. This is right at the time of the death of George Floyd. I'm sure you will have read about this. I'm sure it's going to be written in history somewhere, but unfortunately on May 25th, a black man named George Floyd was killed by a white police officer in Minneapolis. It is a horrible, horrible thing, and it's all caught on video. I'm not sure all the details of it. I mean, there's, still conflicting stories, I guess, and what exactly happened, but at some point, this man was getting arrested. Some say that he was resisting arrest beforehand. Some said he was not, but regardless of what happened beforehand, he is handcuffed, he is laying face down, and this white police officer has his knee pressed into the neck of Mr. Floyd, and Mr. Floyd is no longer resisting arrest in the video. He has stopped resisting arrest, and he continues to say, I cannot breathe, I cannot breathe, I can't breathe, please, please, please. And it is horrifying to see. The officer just doesn't respond. He doesn't move his knee. He shows no compassion, no empathy, no concern for this gentleman, and he continues to press his knee into his neck. And this goes on for about 9 minutes. And the last couple minutes, the guy goes unresponsive. I mean, he looks dead. I think technically he was pronounced dead while, a good bit later, I say a good bit, like an hour later or something, but he blacks out, he passes out. And again, obviously he's no threat at that point, and the officer continues to press his knee into this man's neck, and there's bystanders watching, and they're all screaming, hey, please let this guy breathe, he can't breathe, he's struggling, and there's other officers around, and they don't seem to be caring, and they don't respond. And guys, it's a horrible video to watch. It is so upsetting that these police officers whom we trust to protect us and to serve us blatantly killed this man. I mean, just killed this man. And I don't know this guy. I don't know the police officers. I don't know what was going on in their head or their mind, but it's just, to me, it just looks evil. I mean, it's horrifying. It really is. It's very, very upsetting, and I've been bothered by it. This happened a little over a week ago now at the time of this recording. It is June the 3rd of 2020, and man, it has bothered me, and I just feel bad. I feel bad for this man. I feel bad what he went through. I feel bad for his family. I feel bad for the black community. I mean, they have been battling racism for years and years and years, and even though we have made strides, I believe, as a country, as a humanity, there's obviously still racism in our country, and it's not right. It's not right. It's not okay. But on, I guess, the flip side of all this is now there's been all this rioting and looting, and yes, there's been some very good peaceful protests, and I'm 100% in support of that. And I think their voice does need to be heard. The black community does need to be heard because of the racism and because of the injustice at times. But it looks like hopefully this man will get justice. When I say this man, the police officers, I know they were let go, and they should be charged with some type of murder, manslaughter, something, and that's looking like what's going to happen. But I guess, time will tell. but I don't know. I hope and I pray justice is served. But again, I don't understand. I mean, I guess I do and I don't. This whole rioting and looting and guys, that's just more evil. You're piling more bad things on. Evil against evil does nobody any good. I mean, I understand that, there needs to be a voice, there needs to be justice, and you're angry and you're mad and you're hurt. I mean, I understand that from a human standpoint. Obviously, I don't understand that from the African American community because I'm a white guy, but I do understand that there's hurt, that there's pain, that there's this injustice, and none of that's right. Please hear me say that what has happened is not right. It is not okay what that police officer did, and I hope he gets what he deserves, and that is a very lengthy jail cell or death sentence. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's just very, very tragic. And again, I've just been so bothered by this whole thing and just the amount of evil, I guess, that's out there in humanity, and just seeing the retaliation of people that are hurting. And and again, I know that there's peaceful protests going on, and that's great, but then I see these other people that have taken advantage of the situation, and they've hopped in and they're just fueling the division and the anger and the animosity, and they're just making it everything worse by what they're doing. And I feel like they're playing on people. I think a lot of these people that are involved, I don't think they really care about Black Lives Matter. Some of these people are portraying, Black Lives Matter, and they're going in and they're doing all this stuff and I truly believe that they have hidden agendas and they're just using this for their own benefit, for their own good, for selfish desires or for other things, and that's just all wrong. It's just all wrong. And I've seen so many videos, man. Honestly, if you get on TikTok right now, that's all you see. At least 95% of what pops up through my feed, at least, and I'm guessing everybody else's feed, is just video upon video upon video of just the rioting and the looting and people getting run over by cars and people running through protesters and police officers getting beat down and police officers attacking other people. And it's just, people breaking into innocent businesses and stealing all their stuff and damaging property and damaging cars and innocent bystanders getting beat up and just killed, I think, in the streets. And it's like, what the heck is going on? People have lost their stinking minds, man. And all this evil is coming out and this anarchy, and that's just not the answer. And this whole podcast is the truth for youth. And I don't know what the answer to all this is other than, if we look at the Bible, what does the Bible say? What does God say about all this? And I keep coming back to the passages of love. We are called to love. We are called to love one another. We are called to love our neighbor. We are called to love even our enemies. And I know that last one is super difficult, right? It's super hard to love our enemies, but guys, when you just retaliate and you pour evil on top of evil, that's not doing anybody good. And even the evil that's being, unleashed on even innocent people just because there needs to be a voice, or there needs to be justice, that's not the answer either. That's not the long-term answer. And I go back again to our passages, and I'm going to read a couple passages, verses again that just have continued to pop in my mind as I continue to see all this chaos and just hatred in our society right now. And the first one is in Mark chapter 12, verses 29 through 31. And this is what it says. Someone is asking Jesus, of all the commandments, what is the most important? And Jesus replied, the one that says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only God. And you must love him with all your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength. And the second is this: you must love others as much as yourself. No other commandments are greater than these. You have Jesus being questioned. What is the greatest commandment? Because we have the 10 commandments that was given in the Old Testament, but then you have other laws and other, commands that were kind of given. And so here they are asking Jesus, what is the greatest? And he says, well, first you have to love God. Know that there's only one God, and you must love him with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. But the second is this: to love others as yourself. Some translations say love your neighbor. Well, who is your neighbor? It's not the person that's in a house next to you. Yes, that technically is your neighbor, but your neighbor is anybody that is around you, anybody that is near you. That is your neighbor. And that's why some of the translations say just love others. Love others as yourself. If we all loved others as ourselves, surely we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. Surely we wouldn't have police officers killing innocent black men or any of this racism. I mean, if you love others, you're not going to be racist. You're not going to be, biased. I mean, this is stuff that's been going on for years and years, right? This is not just new. And I talk about hatred for other people. In the Bible, we constantly are seeing other nations hating other nations because of their nationality, because of who they were. It may not necessarily have been skin color. It may have been because of where they lived, or because of who their family was, or because of their socioeconomic status, or, you had the Jews and the Gentiles, and they really despised each other. There's always been a group of people that disliked other people. And that is selfish, and that is hatred, and that's not what God intended. That's not what God wants. God created all of us, every human, in his image. We are all children of God, despite where we come from, despite who our parents are, despite how much money we have, despite our skin color. We all are children of God, and he wants us to all love one another. That's the command. That's the greatest command after loving God, is to love others as ourselves. If we're truly loving others as ourselves, then we're not doing them harm. We're not hurting them. We're helping them. We're looking after them. We're serving them. That's what it means to love your neighbor. That's what it means to love others. Again, so if we have people, if everyone would practice this, man, think about how great our world would be. If everybody truly saw everybody else in this world as a neighbor, as someone to love, that'd be the perfect world, wouldn't it? But the sad matter of the fact is we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a very fallen, broken world. We live in a world full of evil, full of hatred, full of selfishness. And that's just the world that we live in. It's not the world that God wanted, but because he gives man, he gives humankind the opportunity to choose. And unfortunately, we have chosen wrong. We've chosen corruption and sin. We have the fall of Adam and Eve in the garden. And ever since then, there has been sin. There has been a broken world. So in one sense, I'm not surprised at what's happening in our world. We're told this stuff is going to happen, and obviously you read Revelations, and it's a pretty bad time, and it was a bad time even during Jesus. So it's not like, there's ever been a time where all the humans were perfect and everybody was loving one another. So again, I understand that from a biblical standpoint, but on the other end, just as a human, it hurts my heart. It breaks me to see the amount of anger and hatred and just lack of respect there is for other humans. Again, just even watching some of these videos of other people just lashing out and hurting other innocent individuals or innocent business owners. Even some black owners that have black or have businesses other people have been looting and raiding them, and it's like, what are we doing? If Black lives matter, why are we raiding them? And again, I see a lot of white people involved in all this looting, and they're encouraging it, and I don't understand it. I just don't understand. I mean, I do understand. I understand that Satan is real. I understand that his influence is real, and I understand that he wants to cause division. He wants to cause chaos and corruption. And I know that Satan has allowed a certain amount of power during this time, but there will come a day. There will come a day when Jesus returns, and there will be justice permanently, forever, for all. And until that day, there's not going to be a perfect world. There's not going to be perfect justice. But we can do our part. As Christians, we should be loving others. We should be an example. And it goes far beyond just making one little social media post or, whatever. It takes all of us to stand up for what's right, to stand up for what's, if we see wrong or we see injustice, or if we, someone's telling a racial joke or someone's, making racial comments. It takes all of us to stand up and say, that's wrong. That is wrong. That shouldn't be done. And loving others. Another passage that I'm looking at is Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 45. It says, you have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And in that way, you'll be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust. Again, there'll be a time when God returns, or when Jesus returns, and justice will be done. But until then, it says if we want to be true children of our Father in heaven, we are to love others, and love our enemies. That's a hard one. It is. It takes a lot of effort to love those that hate us, to love those that persecute us. But we are called to pray for them, because obviously something's wrong with these people. That police officer that stuck his knee in that man's neck for 9 minutes and heard him screaming and crying, and he was even yelling for his mother. Please, officer, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And for that man to not budge, there's something wrong with that man. He needs prayer. I don't know what anger and what hatred and what evil is in that man's heart or that man's spirit, but he needs Jesus. He needs prayer. And there's a lot of people in this world that are hurting, that want to hurt others. Again, that saying that hurting people hurt people, that is one of the truest sayings, and I'm sure I've said that before on this podcast, and I'll say it many more times. That is so true, and if you can think about that, if someone does you wrong, think why that person must be hurting. Something's going on in that person for them to hurt me like that. They need our prayer. I don't know what's going on, but what? Jesus can change anybody. And a lot of these people in our world right now, they need Jesus. Oh my goodness. Again, all the videos that I've seen, I got to stop. I got to stop watching. It tears me up. It upsets me so much to see the anarchy and the chaos and just people thriving on just beating the crap out of people and stealing stuff and destroying stuff and just, like it's a game or something. I'm like, what in the world? What is going on in those people's lives? What kind of hatred, what kind of stuff is going on for them to want to do that? And I don't know, guys. I don't know. I know this This is a different podcast, and honestly, I don't really know how to express everything. I mean, again, I feel, just me being transparent. I feel odd even doing this podcast because I'm a white guy, and I know, I may get, some criticism because of what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to speak truth from what the Bible says. And again, if we look at the Bible, Christians were persecuted, Jews were persecuted, Gentiles were being persecuted. They were being hated on. We look at Jesus. He was an innocent man. And look what they did to him. They beat him. They humiliated him. They tortured him. And they killed him. And how did Jesus respond? He responded in love. He said, we need to pray for them, for they know not what they do. He understood. And I think that's the mentality that we have to take. When people are just doing evil, we have to take the stance that Jesus did. And we have to say, well, we've got to pray for these people. We've got to try to love them. We need to respond in love, as hard as that is. And just trust that God's in control. Trust that justice will be done. Maybe not here on earth, because there's a lot of, I've got plenty of stories to tell you of how our judicial system is so broken. It is so broken, and so many people get away with the craziest things. But I take comfort in knowing that Jesus is in control and justice will be served one day. And until then, guys, we have to do our part and love others. We have to spread love. We have to help others and pray for others. And it starts at home. It starts with loving each other. We have to love our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. We have to love our fellow human beings, no matter where they come from and what color their skin is. And then we got to pray for our enemies, and we've got to try to love them. So guys, I don't know. I know this has been a very odd podcast, I guess, but I just couldn't quit thinking about what's going on. And I know there's probably so many others out there that are going to listen to this that are troubled by it as well. And, I wish I had an answer. I wish I had a magic wand that I could just wave and solve everything. But I think it's a process that we all have to bond together. We have to stand up for what's right. We have to speak our voices and our minds and say, this is right. This is wrong. Something needs to be done. But guys, until then, I know that I love you. I care about you. And, I'm praying for you. We'll see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.
I don't wanna be just someone that's new. I speak my mind so free, so you could hear the truth. Yeah, I know that we all have fear.